I was building dollies out of PVC pipe and skateboard wheels just to get like tracking shots and things like
Mhm.
that. I mean, it was super guerrilla.
I think the moment for you was that Sony call, right? That Sony call came in, everything became real, everything became like, okay, fine, like I got something here that people want, and then I can monetize this.
The first year I was pretty scared. It was like kind of an existential, like,
Yep.
oh my gosh, like, this is scary.
Even the daughter crumbling in the ashes, I feel like there have been like modern variations of that. Same thing as like the person of interest intro that you worked on.
And then there's jobs that you think are going to be totally suck that
Yeah.
turn out to be great.
I completely
And you're
agree.
like, hey, you're pleasantly surprised. You go, oh, this is great.
Hey everyone, welcome to Prolific Perspectives, brought to you by Prolific Studios. We're all about uplifting the animation community from newbies to professional industry names. We want to create a place that discusses all things animation and what it takes to succeed in this industry. So tune in as we chat with animation professionals, share freelancing tips, and hear some awesome stories along the way. Make sure, if you want to keep on seeing this kind of content, to like and subscribe by clicking on the buttons below. Alright, I want to introduce our amazing guest that we were able to get on board for our third episode. We're thrilled to have Wesley Kandel join us on the podcast today. Wesley is a talented artist, director, designer, and animator with an impressive portfolio. He's worked on notable projects such as God of War, Xbox and product animations, and the visual designs for the 83rd Academy Awards, to just name a few. Wesley's work spans across various industry mediums, showcasing his versatility and creativity. Today, we'll dive into his creative process, industry insights, and what it takes to excel in animation. So get ready for an engaging and insightful conversation that'll surely inspire you. Welcome to the episode, Wesley. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Wesley, as I was introducing you, I didn't say that you have such an amazing portfolio. You have worked or just from broadcasting to game trailers to like, I think you've touched every cornerstone of pop culture, basically, right? So I do want to ask before we get into that works of it all, how it all started for you. So, like, was there an project or a moment in your career that you felt like, hey, this is my calling and I can take this as a profession?
It's actually funny you say calling because I actually and this gets maybe a little tangential and hopefully isn't uncomfortable for anyone, but I actually studied theology
Really?
before I got into animation. Yeah, I was going to go into become a pastor.
Oh, wow.
was actually was actually what I was going to pursue, and I was married with a kid and have a degree in theology from a seminary. And when my son was born, um, I hadn't quite started into actual vocational ministry in any way yet. I was actually just working at Starbucks. But when my son was born, and I was living in Indiana at the time, I decided to compete with a buddy of mine who had made a baby video, and this is back in 2006. So this is like before YouTube really
Yep.
was a big factor. I think it was around maybe.
I think it launched in 2006, I think. I think that's the launch date. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what definitely wasn't a thing was I mean, the iPhone, I think, was announced in 2006. So we were not in the smartphone era. So I'm dealing with mini DV cameras and things like that. But to try to keep this truncated, I
Mhm.
basically decided to make a baby video documenting the process of having a baby when my son was
Wow.
born.
Okay.
And yeah, and this is actually related to the how I got into the animation industry. But um, basically when he was born, I was like recording the whole process like every proud
Yep.
father does. And um probably too much. I mean, I remember I had the camera on like a tripod and I was like doing jib shots over my wife when she was in labor. It was actually ridiculous. But I after when we got home, the two of them were sleeping and I'm sitting there working on my computer, literally an iMovie.
Mhm.
And I put together this like short edit of the birthing process. And in hindsight, it's not anything special compared to what anyone's doing now. But at the time, it was pretty like cutting edge because no one was editing anything. I
Yep.
mean, home videos were like, random, like recorded on an app. You had to have a video camera, the whole thing. So even to edit video was like sort of a unique thing that not everyone was doing. And I did it. I made this basically short little documentary with music and everything. And
I think you were
they ended up showing it.
I think you were family vlogging before family vlogging was a thing.
Yeah, go ahead. I was. No,
Yeah.
seriously, like I definitely was. I mean, this is like super, like honestly, it's actually funny. So but I made this video and they ended up showing it at a church for Father's Day, and I went to a fairly large church. And which again, I know not everyone is into this, but
Mm-hmm.
just this is the actual story. But so they showed it at Father's Day, and all these businessmen in the church started asking me to make videos for their business.
All right.
And I didn't really know anything, but I just started saying yes to everything anyone asked me to do. And I just learned. And at the time, there was this great website called lynda.com. I don't know if you're familiar with lynda.com,
I
but
think I feel like I've heard
it
the
had
name.
it was basically like, yeah, it was like a tutorial website. I mean, you could
Mm.
go on onto Lynda and say I want to learn Final Cut, and there was like 12 hours of Final Cut tutorials, and they take you through everything. It was video, and
Yeah.
I've always been a video auditory learner.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to read a manual, I would have never gotten this done. But because they had these video tutorials, I was able to sit down and I just ate it up. So I learned how to do Final Cut, and very quickly I started running into this situation where I had ideas that I couldn't accomplish in video.
Yep.
I was like, I was picturing these like sweeping camera moves and all these things in my mind. And I mean, I was in Indiana. You couldn't even rent equipment. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, I was building, honestly, I was building dollies out of PVC pipe and skateboard wheels,
Wow.
just to get like tracking shots and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, it was super guerrilla, but I was doing everything I could. I borrowed money from my dad. I bought a Canon XL2. What would Yeah, I think it's an XL2 is the name of the camera. It was this awesome mini DV camera, but the lens was huge. If you look it up, it's kind of this classical camera. I bought one of those, and I was doing basically video production work. But like I was about to say, I got into this really this situation where I was picturing things I couldn't make.
Mm-hmm.
And I had bought Final Cut, and Final Cut came with Apple Motion. And I just decided for whatever reason, like I'm gonna, and there's this show on HBO at the time called Flight of the Conchords,
Yep.
which I thought was just like hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And the cover art of Flight of the Conchords had like the two main actors whose names I forget but are awesome. They had these big heads and little bodies, and I basically just kind of ripped off that concept art, and I did these. I started doing these character animations where I would make these big heads and with like little bodies, and I would like animate everything.
Wow.
And looking back on it, it's like hilarious that I would try to do this and even was given the opportunity, but I was making actual commercials in my home in Indiana. Anyway, like I just it was like this I also started competing in uh, like online competitions a lot. Again, this is early days for video online. It's there's a website called current well it was actually a cable channel called
Mhm.
Current TV. Are you
Okay.
familiar with Current TV?
I actually don't remember this.
Okay, so I know this is all like so obscure, but like so Current TV was started by Al Gore, former
Really?
Vice President Al
Yeah.
Gore. Yeah. So their thing was everything was viewer created.
Oh
So
wow.
again, this is super early.
Yeah.
This is early internet, like not early internet necessarily, but early social media, like just the
Uh-huh.
beginnings. And so you go on to Current TV's website and you'd upload videos. And the way it worked was if the community uploaded your video or upvoted your video, you got onto TV, you got
Oh,
onto cable,
wow. All right.
and you got paid. You
All
got
right.
paid. If you got on there, they pay you and they put your stuff on the air. And at
Wow.
the time, like the end game wasn't to get online. The
Let's
end
get
game
on
was like, I
TV.
want to get on
Yep.
TV. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So it was a huge thing. And then another thing they started doing was they wanted all the advertising to be viewer created too. So if
Hmm.
like Doritos or Nike or Sony or whatever the company has wanted to run an ad on current TV, they had to agree to let the community do a competition and upvote the most popular ad, and that ad would go on TV. So I basically started competing on those things,
Mm-hmm.
and my buddy and I made they Sony wanted to advertise all this line of HD equipment that they were making, and they gave us like a broadcast package, all this artwork, kind of the typical stuff you'd get like when making an ad these days.
Mm-hmm.
They give you all that, and then you're just free to make whatever you want. So we made these ads, and there were these sort of satirical, sort of funny ads, and we got upvoted to the point where like they called us and were like they're actually giving us art direction to make some like simple changes just because we had added this starburst background to the Sony stuff. It didn't fit within their branding, and they wanted us to take that off. And anyway, this
Mm-hmm.
is such a long-winded story, but they they that gave me the confidence like starting to win, like get upvoted on current TV,
Yep.
which happened a couple times, and winning a couple of these ads gave me like made me kind of go, oh, like especially that Sony one. I was like, oh, like Sony liked what I made. Like the community likes it, that's fine. But then I actually got this call from Sony, and I'm like, what the heck? Like
Wow.
they're at it, like they're ad execs, and I'm like,
Yep.
that's crazy. So I was like, I did feel like I got a little shot in the arm of confidence in my sort of abilities then,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point where I was willing to take a risk because I was married with a kid already, right?
Yep.
So like,
It's a big.
so what I did was instead of just trying to jump both feet into the industry, I decided to go back to school. So I went to Full Sail in Orlando and did a 2 year bachelor's degree there.
All right.
And so yeah, we moved to Florida, did 2 years there, and then I got a job at Disney
Wow.
as soon as I got out of school. And the Disney job was like I literally told them I couldn't start because I had to like walk down the like accept my diploma. Like I'm like
Got it.
graduation
Got
is
it. On your
literally
graduation. Yep.
yeah. I was like graduation is this day. I was like I have to start Monday. I can't start on the Friday because I'm graduating. So I walked immediately into a job.
Wow.
And it was for it was actually at Disney World doing event graphics for them.
That's
So it
awesome.
wasn't like I got a job at Disney Animation in
Yeah.
Burbank. It was like event graphics at Disney World, but and it was only a contract thing for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyways, I did that, and and there wasn't really a whole lot else going on in Orlando, and so my
So,
wife and I were like, hey, it's either New York or LA.
so you just decided to move to the LA, right? Yeah. Sorry. I just want to add this. So, like, was it Disney? Obviously, it was. I think the moment for you was that Sony call, right? That Sony call came in. It became everything became real. Everything became like, okay, fine. Like, I got something here that people want, and then I can monetize this on a lot larger scale.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think I would have used the term monetize.
Mm.
I think like I was still in the like, thinking about just direction for my life. You know
Wow.
what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
Like I guess I was starting to realize like, oh wait, I think I've got something here. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think this is maybe something I could do. And also I really liked it a lot. And and it was I'm the type of person that um can be very, very highly motivated as soon as I get the bug placed in me.
Yeah.
But if I don't have that bug, I'm not going to do it.
I think I'm extremely similar to you in this case. Like I really need that motivating factor for me. Like this is the project. This project speaks to me in some sense. I can't just go in and just put in your date, time in, time out. Like I can't do that. It has to be a purpose. And I think a lot of people don't even understand this. Like some people are like, hey, just suck it up, go in, do your thing, go out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially for creative work, it's
Yes.
like you've got to have that little spark of inspiration. And but there's, as I've gotten older and I've worked in the industry longer, it's like there are ways, and if you're not feeling it, sometimes it does feel like a job, and
Hmm.
sometimes if you're not feeling it, like you do have to sort of lean on, you know, your like technique
Yeah.
sometimes if you're not like, because there are times you can't be like that forever, but
Absolutely.
initially it's for someone who's just getting started. You kind of do need it because it takes so much work to get that ball rolling.
Hmm.
I mean, the amount of just, I don't think I could today sit down and just like, actually I can tell you for sure I can't do it, because to sit down and just watch a bunch of tutorials, like I've
Yeah.
been trying to learn Unreal Engine, and I'm
Hmm.
going like, I don't want to learn Unreal Engine. you know? I don't
Uh,
want. I still am going to try. I think I
yeah.
need to. And there's things I'd like to do with Unreal, but like every time I sit down to do a tutorial, I'm like, like
I completely get you. Like every day there's like a new tool that's out there and that's like gaining traction. I'm like, oh come on, now another one. Obviously, in the animation it's a little bit more different because there's more weightage to the softwares. But like especially in marketing, like there's a tool like every other 2 days, right? And you just want to check it out and make sure that it's working. It works in your synergy. But I do want to jump on to my next question. You touched up on it a little bit. You said that like the drive for creative work was like that was your driving thing, right? But a lot of times, especially animators and artists, they're looking for recognition. They want their name to be up front and center. So what are your thoughts on the process of gaining recognition as an artist? Like do you think recognition impacts an artist's career, or can you just be behind the work, behind the scenes guy? And do you think there's a balance to that?
yeah, that's a good question. I think it's really interesting because that's something I have wrestled with. And I think initially, and it's probably different now than it was when I first got started. Because again, I think the market's a lot more saturated. Like on
Yep.
Instagram, for instance, there's a lot more people posting animation work. Um, I personally have not been posting a ton of my work on Instagram. I haven't been doing a lot of the social media stuff. I think probably earlier on I was a lot more hungry for recognition and credit, and I think a lot of us probably are hungry for that validation, and
Yep.
praise, and believe me, I like it too. I'm not. This is not like. I love when people are like, "Dude, that's awesome work, good job," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Thank you." But like, um, I think that's waned a little bit for me over the years. Now, what on from a business perspective and a drumming up work perspective, that's to me that's where it's become a little bit of a different thing. Where it's like I've started to think about, well, should I increase my social media presence more or be more active on social media just to like increase like business
Yeah.
opportunities? And I think the answer is definitely yes.
Hmm.
I haven't really done it because I do most of the time maintain a pretty busy schedule. Now, last year and this year have been a little bit of a different story because the industry is in a, I don't know how you guys have been
Yeah.
doing, but the industry is in a pretty big, like pretty big cut at the moment.
I think it's in a transitional phase right now. It's trying to figure out does AI play in part. Obviously, the elections also like change a lot of stuff, right? So like until November comes, people are looking for stability in some way wherever it goes, but they just want stability, right? Anything, whatever goes. Companies are figuring out. Companies are delaying their projects, like for especially for the end of the year. That's what I've like gained insights on. So like right now, it's the last 1 or 2 years has been where is this industry going, companies figuring it out. And like for example, I've worked with an agency that basically got rid of most of their graphic designers. They went full AI, and then 6 months later they shut that department down because obviously the quality wasn't up to par, right?
Yeah, and that actually it's funny because like the AI thing, and I'm sure we could touch on this
Yep.
a little bit, but just to quickly since it's been brought up, I mean, the AI thing when I first I think I first heard of Midjourney on a
Mm-hmm.
call with some guys I work with in like November of we're in 24, so it's been like 2 years, right, of AI now. Is
Yeah.
that how long we've been dealing with it? It
I
was
think
like
it's,
November of 20. The first year I was pretty scared. It was like kind of an existential, like,
yep.
oh my gosh, like this is scary. I never really went to like AI is the devil sort of
Mm-hmm.
territory because I think that's as much as scary as it is, and it is a scary technology. I think people are rightfully should be like wary of it. I don't think there's anything we can do about it, and I don't think like protesting it or banning it is not gonna work.
Yep.
I mean, like it's just gonna have to happen. Now, I guess I would say I'm a little bit pleasantly surprised in how that it hasn't completely overtaken the industry and that it's turned out to be a little bit of a paper tiger
Yeah.
in a sense, because like you said, it's not actually as good as everyone initially thought it would be.
It's more of the
And
hype
it
right now.
didn't it was a hype thing, and I think it's like when you type in a thing and suddenly you get an image, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing. But you play around with it enough, you start to see, oh wait, this is actually taking me just as long as it would to just sit down and or like I it turned into a reference thing for me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's see if AI like produces anything interesting. And you can go down this rabbit hole of hours
Mm-hmm.
trying to like prompt something, and it just it's like in the end you might as well just make it.
I,
So
I think I
anyway,
think
I'm actually
yeah.
not scared of AI anymore.
Yeah, I think it's people really got impressed by how quickly it created something rather than the quality of it, right? So the quickness of the thing was like, oh, people like, oh wow, now if I give like 10 more minutes, it'll reproduce like high quality. But the problem is it doesn't reproduce that high quality. It doesn't create something actually creative. It's just an iteration of like five different versions of work that's already been existed, and this is just like a summarized version of all five. With that said, I do want to jump into the next question, which is basically about the evolving nature of this industry. So, with the as animation industry, as we just discussed, is changing. And we discussed AI, but what are some trends or technologies that you're actually excited about? And like, is there any particular side that you like want to explore? So you mentioned Unreal Engine, for example, that's existing thing, and that's something you want to get into. But is there something new that you want to like actually explore?
Honestly, like the only thing that comes to mind is hardware.
Mm.
And which it was just kind of a boring answer, but like the only thing that truly gets me excited is when like Nvidia rolls out something like
Yep.
RTX, like ray tracing, where it's
Yep.
like, by the way, you're going to be able to render in Octane at like 200% the speed that you were normally doing. There's not really been like because there's a whole load of plugins that show up and things like that kind of make an appearance in After Effects or whatever. I think I've moved past sort of like following any trends in that
Mm-hmm.
regard. Um, so to me, what makes me excited is anything that's going to get the work done faster, where I can
Got
like
it.
maintain a high level of quality and don't have to spend, a year rendering it.
Just making sure
Uh,
processes are more efficient, basically.
yeah,
Perfect.
exactly. That genuinely does excite me because like I like again, and this is not to go on too much of a tangent here, but just speaking personally, I had a very pop culture approach
Mm-hmm.
to motion design and animation in my early days, and I started working at Imaginary Forces,
Mm.
and
Yep.
quickly, pretty early on, after moving to Los Angeles, and those guys did a really good. I worked there for almost 4 years, and those guys did a good job of sort of scrubbing me clean of all of the sort of trendy
Got
pop
it.
culture motion design thing, where you're just following like
Yep.
at the time there's arrows and vector
Uh-huh.
graphics and all this stuff going on, lens flares everywhere. And I remember Peter Frankfurt. I'm sure he wouldn't remember this because I don't think he really even knew who I was at the time. But he was coming over to look at something I was making,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes, "That's cheesy." he like called something I was doing cheesy, and I was like, oh, like, oh. Like it kind of was like a like I remember
Yeah.
it now, so it stuck. But I sort of took a personally wanted to push towards a more cinematic, timeless
Mm-hmm.
look, where I was really thinking about you know framing things in a cinematic way, lighting and rendering in a cinematic way. Um, Even my camera animations, for instance, I really try to only do things that are physically possible.
All right.
Like yeah, like I don't and I even my rigs for cameras, which I make usually bespoke on a job per job basis. I try to keep it unless it's just impossible, which sometimes it is, but like I try to keep my work um like if I treat a camera as if it's on a
Yeah.
rig, on a jib arm.
That's actually that's actually really interesting because I do want to ask, do you think this adds a sense of like more weight in the video?
Yes, I do. And
Yeah.
actually that's a big so that thing that building everything to scale,
Hmm.
like that was another big pursuit for me, was like um what makes things look big?
Yeah.
Makes things look small optically?
Hmm.
Like if you film it like, which I got my start with doing actual like photography.
Hmm.
So like you know, what is depth of field? And this
Yeah.
all sounds super basic, but like I don't think a lot of people really dig into this. It's like uh f-stops, like
Hmm.
frame rates, like atmosphere, like as it falls off, think
Yeah.
like what is that? What is that? Like, and all these little things add up to give your work a sense of realism. And I'm not saying I produce personally like 100% the most photo real stuff ever. I'm still on a journey, but it's a weird way to answer the question. But I've tried to move away from
Yeah, I
any
think
kind of trend and just try to make everything look cinematic.
yeah, that's what while I was researching your works and stuff, I did realize there's a very cinematic feel to all of most of your work. Like for example, I do want to talk about something that again speaks to me personally a lot is like the God of War animation trailer, right? So I that is something that was for a game that's all about chaos and stuff like that. That was a moment of uh, recollection, like making sure that you're understanding the thematic elements in the show and the game, sorry, and like what all these elements and how they play into this motivation of Kratos and like how does he use it. Again, I think it was a very unique way of looking at it. It had a lot of like gladiator references, I believe, because the wheat going through the wheat field, right? So like those things, they're iconic, that make you think of a specific thing, and again, more cinematic in nature. Jumping on that question, yeah.
To be clear, real quick, just to be clear about like the process on that job. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that trailer was directed by Karen Fong,
Mm-hmm.
the live action portion, and so my involvement on that actually was I would say is the part you're liking, but it was the concept phase for that
Yeah.
job. So the pitch for that, the story there, this was at Imaginary Forces, was we had two competing teams internally,
Oh wow.
and Karen was based out of New York, and I still actually don't really know her. She's based out of New York,
Got it.
and I'd worked for a couple of her projects remotely, but we really never interacted. But she had her team, we had our team, and I wasn't even in a leadership role in that project, but I was kind of the only gaming nerd in the
Mm-hmm.
room. And so they were like, Wes, you want to like, she had done the title sequences for God of War 3. So she had already had a relationship
Got
with
it.
the client
Yeah.
there. So again, I just want to make sure that the credit is like, I'm not trying to take too much credit there, but what I did do on that was the whole
Concept.
idea for the ashes
Yeah.
in the rain, um, him, the daughter crumbling in his arms, like that I did come up with.
And
which I had done a bunch of research in
And,
school.
I was talking to you before the we started recording this podcast, like how I feel like you worked on things that have inspired like a lot of variations. Even the daughter crumbling in the ashes, I feel like there have been like modern variations of that. Similar, same thing as like the person of interest intro that you worked on. I feel like it has literally defined how we think AI looks at things, right? So whenever we picture like AI is using this facial recognition and stuff, I think in movies, you go to Born Identity, Born Supremacy, it has those kind of feel to it. And then in recent works, I feel like Watch Dogs, a whole game that's literally, I feel like it's just based on that intro, the feel and nature of it. So I just want to say kudos on those works. And I do, jumping on the point that you were we talking about recognition, I do suggest you, if you just write on Reddit that I worked on the title sequence or person of interest, I'm telling you, people will go apeshit. People love that show. People, there's a whole cult following. I can't tell you more about this. I suggest you do an AMA, and it's gonna be really cool.
Let me tell you a little Easter egg about
Mm-hmm.
that title sequence. The all the face scanning
Yeah.
reticles that show up, they have these random numbers underneath the
Yeah.
reticles, and I just was making the numbers up, and there's only four different
Okay.
numbers, and the numbers are my birthday, my wife's birthday, my daughter's birthday, and my son's birthday.
Oh, that's an awesome Easter egg. That's an awesome Easter egg. That's like where you see now like artists leave their mark.
Yeah, I didn't format them in date format so that it wasn't like
Yep.
obvious that I was doing like because my birthday is April
Mm-hmm.
30th, but I was like, okay, but you'll see 4/30/82
Wow.
in there there's like a period, it's
Yeah.
like 4.0.30.882 or whatever. But yeah, they're all in there, yeah.
That's actually really cool, and I'm telling you, you really should go on Reddit. I'm telling you, there's a whole devoted following to that show right now.
Which
Uh,
Reddit thread should I do it on?
I suggest like ask me anything. Do it on AMA, or you can do it on the person of interest one. But I think the AMA one will get you a little bit broader audience over there. It's going to be really cool, and there's a really strong following. Trust me, I'm part of that. So
Okay, all right.
I do want to talking about like you working on different kinds of projects, right? So from game trailers to movie trailer sequences to event show graphics and music videos as well. Is there a specific approach you have, like with regards to your research process, or just like your design thing, with regards to like different industries? So how do you approach? Is your approach to like a music video different to approaching a game trailer animation?
Music is a huge thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I actually I'm a musician. I got started doing music, and um, so it's a big driving factor. Like I don't know if other people are like this, but I've always been a person that pictures visuals with music that I like. So like I can sometimes just completely think of an entire like music video because of the vibe of a piece of music. So like, you know, so yeah, I would say it's a little different. In fact, although I try to keep it the same. Like oftentimes, like for a game trailer, like also, speaking of the God of War one, um, the first thing I did for that was I researched the story. Which, by the way, the story of that was Sony came directly to Imaginary Forces because Karen had done that the opening titles. They liked their work. Again, this is not. I would never even got to touch this if it wasn't for them. But uh, I started looking. All they had was this was the brief. They had a paragraph that they sent, and it was people don't like our main character. They think
Mm.
he's mean. We want to make him more like likable.
Yep.
That was kind of like he's currently he just kills everything and everyone, and like
He's angry
they don't like
always.
him.
Yep.
Yeah, we and the other thing was, and you'll probably see this as soon as I say this. They really liked the opening trail or the trailer for Gears of War, which had
Mm-hmm.
the oh what's the can't remember the
Marcus.
song.
Oh, the song.
It's the famous God of War trailer that was directed by the guy who did Tron.
I think something's coming to mind. Like there was a really famous one. I can't put the name on it, but I do remember something.
Na, 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 na,
Na,
na,
na,
na,
na. Yeah,
na,
it was just it was the
na,
music
na.
and playing in the background, right? Yeah.
Yeah, super slow mo
Yep.
kind of thing. Anyway, they loved that trailer and they were like, "Can we do something that has a similar vibe?"
Got it.
So again, this is a long way of answering your question. But I started with, okay, I'm gonna research the story. I'm gonna see if there's anything I could hook on to. And I looked at because actually I hadn't played God of War,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay. I looked into it and I saw, oh, he was tricked by the god of Hades into killing his family.
Yep.
He was hallucinated. He hallucinated, and he thought he was fighting bad guys, and instead he was murdering his
Killings.
wife.
Yes.
And at the time, my wife was pregnant with our daughter, or
Oh
maybe
wow.
she had just been, yeah, she had just been born. And I was like, I was feeling particularly emotional about daughters at the time.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's what I latched on. I was like, oh my gosh, it's such a sad story. And then I saw the thing about he was cursed to wear their ashes, which is why he's white.
Yep.
And I don't know, man. I think I then started looking at the music, and we didn't use the music that I was using to sort of inspire my. I still have the around here somewhere. I've got the animatic that we made.
Hmm.
What song did I use? I can't. Oh! It was "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Was that used in the final version or just in the concept, or just in the concept?
That was one of the things Karen changed, and actually, I think Karen's version. I liked her. I like what she did better
Hmm.
than my the song that I was choosing. So yeah, she killed it, man. I was
Yeah.
mad at her first because they kind of took the job away from us.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it in LA, but so we didn't get to actually work on the production. Anyway, but yeah, I sat down and I was listening to music, and I was like, okay, what music fits the vibe that they wanted? And I found a piece of music, and I just started picturing this story of like this dad seeing his daughter running towards her, picking her up, and he thinks everything's fine, and he's holding her, and she just begins to crumble in his arms, and then the ashes start to like cover his entire body. Um, and that all came from the music.
Wow. So the music was instrumental, like to making sure like the visuals of it is going with it, right?
Yeah, it basically, to me, that's what makes me emotional. Music makes me emotional. And if I find a piece of music that puts me in the right emotional space, then I think at least someone else will get there too.
Do you use music? So, for example, we go changing directions a little bit. If you're working on a product animation, for example, you worked on the Xbox controller product animation. Do you use music in that as well, or is it just for more of a creative works?
Yes. I mean, personally, I will take like every single job. I will find a piece of music
Got it.
that has the right energy for what I'm wanting to do. Like, whatever, like if I find a piece of music that like just feels, like for instance, like the Xbox thing. Now that job I wouldn't say was like, you know, my most like creative.
Obviously, that's what I want to ask. Like, if you're moving away from something more technical rather than creative, then like, does music play a part in that as well?
I don't always get a chance to do this, and this is more of an ideal situation. It's like where I get to sit down, and because sometimes it takes a while
Yep.
because I mean, listening to songs. I mean, like you gotta like sometimes you don't find the song,
Yeah.
and it could take days. So I
Yes.
don't always have the luxury of doing that. So that job specifically, I'll tell you behind the scenes was a pretty rough, like pretty quick, rushed thing.
Got it.
And it was like there's a lot of it was for Microsoft, so there was a lot of like scrutiny and so much back and forth and just a lot of different cooks in the kitchen, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of jobs end up when you're doing kind of commercial work is like you just kind of have to just make it.
I do. Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you, but I do want to like jump on this point where you're talking about like the conventional studio work, right? So over the last few years, like obviously freelancing has become a more lucrative option as well for other people to get work, and so it's changing the way the industry works. Now there are a group of freelancers, and you have studios on board. So how do you view this shift towards freelance opportunities versus traditional studio work? Like, what are the benefits or challenges like for each of them? What do you think? Because you obviously have expertise in both of these fields.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like to me, I don't think of it as a shift. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been a freelancer my entire career.
Hmm.
So I like actually there was a brief period where I was on staff. I've only gone on staff at one place. It was Zoic Studios, and I was an art director there, and it was only for about a year. So I've been a freelancer, you know, my entire career basically.
So I think we can say that you prefer the being your own boss.
That is 100% the
Yeah.
case. Actually, there's a lot of benefits to it, which is like you don't really get involved in office politics.
Hmm.
You're kind of this guy that comes in and you're there for the project. So no one really views you as a threat.
Yeah.
You're just there to help,
Just there to help. Yeah.
you know? And that makes like I'm friendly with everybody.
Hmm.
Like I come into a studio and it's like, yo, like everyone's happy to have me on. They give me my stuff and I get to work and um you know now some of the studios I work for I've been freelancing now for like 10 years and I've gotten to know them. And some of them I'd like happily go on staff with, but you do make more money as a freelancer too.
Yeah.
So like to even bring up the staff conversation, you're talking about like a 40 to 50% pay cut,
Hmm.
which I've never been able to, stomach basically. So I've been able to work steady. Aside from last year and this year, I've never wanted for work.
So what would you recommend to someone who is joining the animation industry? Just like let's imagine a 19-year-old just got in almost the same journey as you, worked on some side projects. What do you think they should they like push themselves to get their own clients, or do you think a traditional workspace will help them like grow as an artist as well?
I think it's going to be tough to get your own clients, like
Yeah.
direct
Yeah.
to client. I mean, that's honestly, that's still something I am working on. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm still like, all right, how do I get a connection with, like
Yeah.
fill in the blank, whatever it is. Like the connections are hard, and a lot of those are personal.
Hmm.
Like a lot of the times, those connections, like the studios are built off of like one guy knew another
Yeah.
guy, and like he was given a job and it was big enough that he was able to turn it like get a studio started off of it. I mean, it's there. Every business is personal. I mean, like it really is. So my advice, and again, this is just gonna mimic basically what happened with me
Hmm.
because it worked. Was you have to work your butt off and make sure your work is like as top tier. This is easier said than done, but I'll just say it. But like your work has to be great. You've got to like my personal philosophy is I work on something until I like it.
Got it.
I'm not a self hater. I'm not one of those people who never likes their work. I can get to the point where I'm like, oh, this is pretty good.
That's like you. I'm constantly like looking. Ah, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. I'm just gonna put it out there, but it's not good enough. Like I'm always in the pursuit of the chase.
There's always something else that could be done. Don't get me
Yes,
wrong. I mean, you have to just say it's good enough, and
absolutely.
that is the case. But there's also like there's also this threshold where it's like I can't show this at all.
Yeah.
Like I don't even want to show this to the client. So I want to get to the point where I'm like I'm at least I can defend it,
Hmm.
or I can say like this is there's more there's here's a list of things I'm still yet to do that'll make this even better. But this gets the idea across.
I think the perfect summation would be it's not perfect, but it's good enough,
Yes,
right?
but anyway, back to the original question. The I think a young person, the advantage of being young is you don't have a lot of um, liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most likely, you don't have a house, you don't have a
Yeah.
lot of bills, you're probably still driving a car that your parents either provided for you or you bought
Yeah.
cheaply or whatever it is. I would say be content with that. Like seriously, be content with that. Um, be cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Like seriously, like have a low rate to the point where like not crazy low, like but not like don't come in there and
Yeah.
say like I'm going to charge top tier rates. Charge like a low rate. Charge a starting rate. And the reason I say this is not to like you're not trying to give a break to the studio or to the
Yeah.
client or whatever. The point is be so cheap that they'll put you on any project just to like
So being cheap allows you to work on like bigger and better projects that you wouldn't have necessarily, right?
yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're charging like, like 800 a day, a
Yeah.
thousand a day, whatever it is, they're not just going to be like, well, let's just throw them on this project.
Yeah.
No, no, no. Like you've got to be specifically chosen as the person for that shot. If you're in like the 300, 253 or whatever, I'm just throwing
Yeah.
out, these
Yeah.
are LA numbers that I've seen, right? But like, and it's different all over the world. But if you're in the lower end, um, you know, it doesn't mean your work is bad, but they're just going to be like, well, let's just put them on this shot.
Yeah.
We're not losing a ton.
Let's see what
Like
he can
if
do.
let's see what you can do, and they'll
Yeah.
give you a shot. And then just do that for a couple years and build up your. And I like that's what I was saying. And again, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. It doesn't have to be this way, but I was super cheap at first. I was a super.
I think your approach by to saying yes to all the opportunities that were coming in front of you, I think that gave you the ability to basically work on so many different things, push yourself in different those creative aspects. And I think this is where a lot of people have started like I think falling back. They're like, oh hey, I need to obviously they want to earn a livable income, but that does not mean that you set yourself so high that you're in a position that you're not able to work on a lot of projects, especially in the early career. So early career should be yes, yes, yes. Middle of your career should be maybe, and then the final version of your career like I only going to do what I want to do.
Yeah, you have to earn the picky thing,
Yeah,
and I'm still not there. I'm not, I don't turn projects down.
yeah, makes sense. Absolutely, I totally agree.
Yeah, like I try to, I mean, I'm still like, I've got a wife and kids to support.
Yeah,
My son, who I was mentioning earlier, just graduated from high school. So
congrats.
I'm getting to the point, yeah, I'm getting to the point where it's like we're starting to, like have fewer mouths to feed at the house, but he's at
It's
his most
the
expensive now, to be honest.
yeah. I think until he graduates university, I think that's like what the general sentiment is like until university, and then once you start like getting a good gig going on, I think that's and especially in this economy, it's like there's so much again, so much going on.
Yeah. But yeah, actually I'm glad you mentioned the saying yes to everything because that's a huge thing. And it made me think of too, another philosophy I've had is I've tried to do something new on every project.
Mm-hmm.
Like learn some new, like I'm gonna do a fluid sim on this. Like this could use like fire, and I'm gonna learn how to do fire effects
Yeah,
or like atmosphere or smoke or just a little like just
a little
add
bit
something new
something
to the
new
toolkit.
about it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah.
Sorry, Wesley. I just wanted to like jump in. I wanted to get one last question in, because I think this is something. It's going to be. It's I after going through our conversation, I think your perspective on this will be quite different, which is why I really want to fit this in before we start wrapping things up. So, what is your view on the artist's voice versus what the audience or the client wants? Right? You always find artists, especially in the animation world, they want to go sometimes go creative, but the client doesn't want that. The client wants something more general, something more focused. So how do you approach finding that balance of like fulfilling your creative side of things as well, while obviously satisfying what the audience or the client wants?
Oh, that is the $1 million question, really.
Is there an answer to this question, or do you think it's just like a process you just have to go through?
there are different ways of finding satisfaction in animation work. Now I have found that if I don't think I'm going to find satisfaction in the like necessarily in like in the work itself, in like the actual the end product,
Hmm.
I try to find something in the process
Wow.
that
Okay.
is like I can latch onto. And for me, like I'm a really big fan of like finding ways of automating things or like building, you know, rigs that will make like, if I know that there's a kind of a crazy animation that needs to be done that the client might want to fiddle with,
Hmm.
I might come up with a parametric way of setting that up.
Got
It
it.
might take a little bit longer to do the initial setup, but then if the client makes a change, I can just change a number and it'll make an adjustment. That this is my personality, but I get a kick out of like just designing systems like that. And that's a little bit of an engineering brain
Yeah.
happening in addition to the creative, which
Yep.
honestly I think a lot of 3D guys are and girls are probably a mixture of the two. There's this
Absolutely.
weird symbiosis between right brain and left brain that just you kind of have to enjoy this work. Now, creatively speaking, I mean, it was different at the beginning than it is now. Like now, I think I've gotten to the point, like basically, and I said this to people before. There is no way of predicting whether a job is going to be creatively satisfying or not.
Hmm.
Like you might look at the brief and go, "Oh, dude, this is going to be the coolest thing I've ever made," and it turns out to be total crap.
Yep.
For all the factors that lead like that make things bad. The client might be an idiot.
Yeah.
Um, the timeline might be horrible. You might not have people could have been indecisive and not giving you the time you need to truly polish things up. There could be any number of factors. And then there's jobs that you think are going to be like totally suck that
Yeah.
turn out to be great,
I completely
and you're
agree.
like, yeah, you're pleasantly surprised. You go, oh, this is great. So like, I basically have stopped trying to predict whether a job is going to be good or not
Hmm.
creatively, and I just try to make the best work. Like literally, take each day as it comes, and just try to make the best work I can on any given day. Just like be as diligent to do what I can. And again, I think this just comes from experience. But I'm like, I'm just going to do what I can do today, and just hope it turns out okay. And I'm going to find satisfaction in the process and then like the creative side is icing on the cake. That's all it is. If it turns out to be a cool project creatively, amazing. That's great. But I can no longer be completely driven by what the creative outcome could be because it's just honestly, it's just a crapshoot in the end.
So I think it's the journey that counts, not the destination. So yeah. I think that's amazing way to look at it, and I think this, especially in a place where people are just chasing creative satisfaction, I think people forget to like uh, or just experience what they're going through, the process, the day to day, just worrying about what the final product is going to be. And I think that's a really awesome way of looking at it. And I think this does help, especially like new people coming into this industry. Because again, because social media is there's so much social media, people are putting out so many different kind of works. So they always feel like, hey, I want to put something cool out there as well, but something else is paying the bills. So like obviously you have to find that creative essence through that, even through that stale work, find what you can learn, and then hopefully you are in a position where you can completely go work on your creative side of things. Wesley, I just wanted to thank you so much. I think this conversation was really awesome, and I think a lot of people will actually learn a lot from your story and your journey. So I just want to say it's been fantastic having you on Prolific Perspectives. Your journey has been truly inspiring, and I think it is going to inspire others as well. And I do suggest, do go on Reddit, do the AMA. I'm telling you, for the person of interest, people are going to go ape shit on that. And because again, I am part of the community, so it was really cool talking to you
All
about
right,
this.
man.
So, for to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, and all the details for Wesley will be in the description below. So please make sure to check him out. And so stay tuned for more exciting conversations with the creative minds shaping the future of animation. Wesley, do you have any final words?
Just work hard, everybody. I mean, that's perseverance is the only thing that'll get you anywhere in this business. So just if you want to do it, just work hard. You don't have to do it your entire life, but you gotta work hard at the beginning. That's the answer.
Yeah, I completely agree. Wesley, thank you so much. That brings an end to the podcast.